Hello, my dear friends. This is Cynthia Concordia from Dream to Rise, and I have a special guest. This person is truly a light warrior himself. We usually discuss in this podcast, let us be light warriors for others. So, our guest was born in Pensacola, Florida. He grew up in the rural South in an environment shaped by addiction, instability, and neglect, experiences that would later form the emotional backbone of his writing. Before becoming an author, he worked a wide range of jobs that reflected both necessity and curiosity about the world, from short order cook to labor in a Navy shipyard, eventually building a career in the financial sector as an executive assistant. Along the way, he also developed a passion for photography, earning recognition and awards for his work behind the camera. He lives in LA now with his husband and their three rescue dogs. His life now stands in stark contrast to the chaos of his childhood, a testament to the central idea at the heart of his memoir, and that the past may shape us, but it does not have to define us. Through his writing, photography, and creative work, he continues to explore themes of identity, resilience, and what it means to build a life after survival. Without further ado, let us welcome our guest, Tim Smith. Welcome, Tim. Nice to have you here.
Hi, Cynthia. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. And I just want to thank you so much for the work that you do, for all of the people seen and unseen, and for you offering hope and light to so many people and spreading your joy to so many people. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
It's an honor to have you here. And I'm so excited to learn more about his story. So let us start. Would you like to tell us something about yourself that brought you to where you are right now?
Sure. My name is Tim Smith. I'm author of my debut novel, Fault Line, Still Standing. The road to get here as an author was not a straight path. It definitely was a winding road with many forks in the road and many roadblocks and different obstacles and hurdles to overcome. Sometimes it can seem like when we're on that path that we may be stuck or we may be in a rut, or sometimes we're not sure if we should go left or right. And I think one of the central themes in the book is that there is hope, that you can be resilient, you can find a new life, you can build a new life. And you don't have to be stuck with your past. The past is something that has happened to you, but it doesn't necessarily need to define you.
Exactly. So, can you share the pivotal moments in your life that led you to confront because you mentioned that you were exposed to addiction.
Mhm.
You, have you experienced addicted to something?
I would say
Mhm.
no-ish.
Uh-huh.
I think there were probably some times in my late teens and early 20s where I think the instability of my life and my upbringing and trying to become an adult with no real roadmap, I think created opportunities for me to escape my reality that I didn't want to be in. So certainly I did turn to alcohol, and I would say some drug use to escape that, but I wouldn't have considered myself an addict. It was something that, after a few times or a period or a couple of months, it was just something I didn't want to do anymore. It wasn't something I was interested in. I think about my mother and my father. They were addicts. My mother was an alcoholic and she enjoyed taking pills on the side. And my father was also an alcoholic and was addicted to crack cocaine later in his life. And I think it's one of the things that killed him. And I started to see some of those patterns in myself, right? Like I would notice the drinking or I would notice the drug use. And then something pinged, something showed me the parallel between their life and my life. And that's not where I wanted to go. That was not who I wanted to be. Even say throughout my book, Fault Line, that I'd always hoped for better. I always knew there was better. I just didn't know how to get there yet, and sometimes there's not a roadmap to hope, and there's not a roadmap to recovery, and there's not a roadmap to shaking the shackles of your past and trying to find a future for yourself.
Mhm. Oh, I think probably at the early age, it was just trial and
Oh, I
trying it
think
out.
certainly, yeah,
Yeah.
like with
Oh,
kids, absolutely. You're with your
yes.
friends, you're with your kids, and then there was something about like the excessive drinking and doing drugs that, made you feel good. It made you feel high and on top of the world. And it made me forget those problems. And it would sort of dull my mother's voice in my head. I think it was definitely a combination of certainly experimentation and probably trying to run from my past as well, a past I wasn't ready to face yet.
Mhm. Yes. And you know already the consequences. That's why you've stopped doing what you have because you have seen it from your parents.
Yeah.
You mentioned about instability. How did instability in your early life influence your perspective on relationships and trust?
That's a good question. Trust I still struggle with, even to this day and to this age. I don't necessarily think people are out to get me or have it, in for me. I certainly do not feel that way. But I do find that I am a little guarded with people, especially when I first meet them. As a child, when, the people that are supposed to protect you are the ones that hurt you the most, you tend to really put up guard and really tend to try to protect yourself. And sometimes I still do try to protect myself. And I do have to remind myself sometimes that I don't have to be hyper vigilant anymore. I'm not a little boy. I'm not 7 years old. My stepdad's not coming in to beat me. My mom's not drinking herself into a stupor. My life is stable and I'm safe and it's good. And I don't have to be so vigilant all the time. And I think part of that is sort of nervous system conditioning. So like as a child, right, like our nervous system is influenced by our environment, our surroundings, and how our parents care for us and our community. And all of that for me was a mess. I mean, it was just really a mess. And so I think from some of that, one, like I learned that trust doesn't come easy for me, but I can get there. I just need to have sort of signs from the other person or from the relationship that I can trust you. I need more actionable things more so than words. And then my mom and dad had divorced, maybe when I was 5. They lived together when I was till I was 6. She kidnapped me from my dad and then took me to go live with my stepfather, who she had met in a bar. And then I wasn't able to see my dad for a year. And so those first few years with them was a lot of bouncing from home to home, moving from place to place, school to school. And I knew that I didn't like it. I didn't know necessarily what stability was, right? But I knew that I didn't like it. And I think knowing what you don't like gives you a roadmap to what you do like, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
I like to say I did not have role models growing up. I had people that I did not want to be like growing up.
Hmm. And that's what you're trying to avoid. And I know it's hard to trust someone if you have gone through so much in life.
Yeah.
After going through a rough marriage, my walls are up. And I don't know how to relate with guys anymore, starting a relationship. But I believe that past is past and we should work on the present, right? If we focus on the past, we will feel depressed. And when we focus on the future, we feel anxious because
Mhm.
we're still not in that situation. So we really have to work on the present moment. So when you mentioned about you're still struggling with trust, what are your ways and means to cope up to help you overcome these trust issues?
Another good question, Cynthia.
Sorry, I'm going deeper and deeper, huh?
Yeah, you are. I love it. Honestly, I don't know what my answer is to that. Generally, I'm pretty guarded and self-protected. It just takes a little bit of time with me. It just takes a little bit of time. Generally, for me, time is what gets me there. If we can just have a few interactions, or if, a few weeks go by and I can sort of get a good sense of who you are and what you're about, then I feel a little safer being vulnerable, a little safer sharing who I am or my story. But honestly, there's always a part of me that will always be guarded. There's a part of me that will always seclude myself from other people. It just is in my makeup, it's in my being, it is just who I am. Coming out sort of publicly with my story and writing this book and being here on this podcast with you, it's it's a great dichotomy for me, and I feel like I'm kind of stuck in the middle, right? So there's that thin line, right, between keep it to yourself, don't tell anybody, don't share. And then the other part where, the story's worth sharing. It could help someone, right? And so I find that I am sometimes holding my breath in between those two places, right? And I think within those two places is where the magic happens. You know what I mean? Like the special place between control and release. There's a real balance there. Um, when I've done yoga and meditation, and I can equate it to this, that there's something special in the moment between each breath,
Mhm.
you know, between the exhale and the inhale, that just one moment of stillness before the next breath. And so sometimes I kind of equate that, like, that's where I am. I'm sort of in this, just going down this path, and I've got, my self-doubt and my go for it on the other side. And I'm just trying to stay, right there in that serenity.
Well, that's one way of overcoming that trust issue. Well, self-care. And if meditation could help, why not?
Right.
I just want to share, based from my experience, it's the forgiveness that I had to let go, the unforgiveness issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I keep on holding on to that baggage, it will be very heavy for me to
Agreed.
enjoy the journey of life. And instead of me reaching my destination, which is my dream, quickly, it will just drag me. So that was the main thing which helped me gain that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
When I started with this one as a life coach, my my coach told me, Cynthia, why won't you do a live video of your story? Oh my, it took me like 5 times to press that record button. And I was praying, what if the other people his family would hear this? And it will, again, a negative reaction. But you know what? After that, I didn't know a lot of people were impacted by my story. A lot of people who were also abused suddenly showed up and shared with me, Cynthia, thank you for being so vulnerable, for sharing your story, because I was and I am still in that situation. And that made me aware that, hey, a lot of people are just waiting for your story or our stories to be heard, to be inspired and be empowered.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And forgiveness was and is a big part of, I think, the healing, sort of my past relationship with my parents. Forgiveness is tricky. It's tricky. There are things that I can forgive, and there are still some things that I think it's natural that we hold on to those things a little bit, right? I just think that's normal and natural. I have forgiven them, and it's taken a lot. It's taken a lot to really get to that space. And then some days I'm not in that space. Some days I kind of am, I don't say I'm holding a grudge against them, but I sometimes I'm like, you could have done this better. There was two choices there, and you picked the wrong choices time and time again. And then part of me tries to equate it to my human experience, right? They were probably just trying to do the best they could with the knowledge that they had available to them. And so when I put it that way, I can have some sympathy, but then sometimes when I look at it through my shared lived experience, um, sometimes it's harder to have sympathy, right? I can understand, but it doesn't necessarily wipe away their sins, so to speak.
Mhm. I understand you. And I've gone through parents who are very strict as well,
Mhm.
full of focusing on negativity. And I get drained so easily when someone would always focus on the worst case scenario, focus on the problem instead of the solutions. So
Mhm.
that's what I'm trying to avoid. When you mentioned about neglect, what role did neglect play in shaping your self-image and your understanding of love and support?
Oh, I felt horrible about myself. I felt like nobody wanted me, no one cared for me, no one loved me. My dad was pretty much not in the picture. He was in and out and on and off. My mother was certainly tending to her own needs, her own addictions, her own life. My stepfather didn't care. I was just part of the deal, in being married with her. And so I had horrible self-esteem. I thought the rejection I was getting, I deserved. I thought I did not deserve love. I did not deserve to have, a happy life or good things. And I thought um, that it was what I deserved. I thought that those are the things that were meant for me and that this was always going to be my life. It's going to be small and forgettable and miserable. And that's just how it was. Um, and then something sort of shifted. Something shifted. And I can't, pinpoint it. I can't explain it. I just would have like a little whisper, a little inkling in my head, you can do better. There's better, there's better. And I didn't know how to get to better. There was no manual, there's no book, there's no roadmap. I just knew that I could hope for better things for me. And hope is one of the most powerful weapons. I think hope is extremely undervalued. I think hope is extremely underrated. And even as a child going through some of the things that I went through, like I'd always hoped for a better life. I'd always hoped for a better future. And sometimes when you're in that dark bubble, as you like to call it, it's hard to see the light outside of that, but once you get a taste of that sunshine, Cynthia, you want more,
Of course.
and I had some sunshine and I wanted more, sometimes thunderstorms come through the sunny days, right? But I wanted more sunshine and I fought for more of that for myself. And I think I subconsciously, I don't know if this makes sense, I think I subconsciously made a conscious effort to want better for myself, want better life, better circumstances, a better outcome.
Of course. When you mentioned about sunshine, now you're an author. Now you're providing, like, you're now a light warrior for others. And so, uh, how do you think your past experiences have shaped your voice as an author?
My author voice can be, sometimes I think it can be, there's some dark humor in there. I'm a truth teller. I like to say that I'm a direct communicator. I'm not a person that I like candor. Like if I just tell you how I'm feeling and what the situation is, and you tell me how you're feeling, what the situation is, regardless if it may be, a little challenging thing to hear. Um, we're both on the same level. I know what you think, you know what I think. And so I think that comes through in the book too. Like a lot of the things that happened that I talk about in my book, Fault Line, are unvarnished. And, some of the things are ugly. Some of the things that a child should never endure. Um, and so I've tried to incorporate those pieces of my past and the voice of my present that's able to sort of view it and sort of put them all into one place. And that sort of ended up being my book. In the beginning, the book, the voice is a child's voice because it's how I remember it, as a child, as a little boy. And so I think some of the writing in the beginning is maybe a little more simplistic, a little more written from a child's perspective, a child's memory. And then as I mature, I think the writing matures. And as I wrote more, I kind of got into more of a cadence, more kind of enjoying it, knowing how to sort of wordplay a little bit more. And so that was pretty enjoyable. I did enjoy those parts. So, just the lived experience really helped shape it. And I always kind of put things with a dark comedic light. And so I think sometimes it kind of comes through the book. There is some dark humor in there for sure.
I'm kind of excited to to learn more about that from your book. So can you discuss, was there a support system or systems that emerged during your difficult times and how they impacted your recovery?
Absolutely not. And absolutely yes. So along the trail, there are little helping hands, little guides, little rest areas, right? And so fortunately, throughout those experiences, there were people that, showed up for me unexpectedly or showed up when I needed them. I think the universe has a way of surprising you sometimes. My grandmother was a big influence. Um, Whenever I got to go visit my dad, he lived with her because he was pretty unstable and didn't work all the time. So we would stay with her. And she was such a kind influence on me. And I say this in my book that if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't really know how to love. I wouldn't know how to be a centered person. I wouldn't know how to have morality. I wouldn't know right from wrong because that was never shown to me. And then there were a couple of teachers along the way. There was a teacher in sixth grade that I loved, Mrs. Pagani. She had just married an Italian man, and she'd come in every morning and say, "Buongiorno, class," and I loved it. And I was dyslexic growing up, and so no one could figure out that I was dyslexic. And so I had trouble with school and reading and all that, everything that comes with that. And then one day I'd had a teacher that said, "Do you see the letters flipped? Do you see the words flipped?" And I was like, "Yes, that's yes." And she was like, "Oh, you're dyslexic. That's easy. We can fix that. That's, or not we can fix it, but we know what it is now. We can identify it, right?" And so Mrs. Pagani realized that once I could read, that I love to read. And I love Greek mythology and all the stories of the gods and goddesses and all the myths. So she would buy me books on that. And so I would read them. She would give me other books, Where the Red Fern Grows, which was very impactful for me in sixth grade. And I even named a chapter in my book, Fault Line. It's I Know Where the Red Fern Grows, kind of based on that, on grief and knowing that hope and joy and love can grow out of grief. It's not always a ground full of grief. There are even broken ground remembers how to grow. And then, I had a couple of friends in high school, right? Or a couple of people that I would meet in early adulthood that would kind of show you the way or guide you, or almost like, when you're going along the freeway and you've got the bumper guards there to kind of keep you from going off, you kind of run into those people that were like bumper guards that kind of would keep me from just teetering off and falling into my own worst influences. And so grateful for those little angels that came along, because I might not have made it, without those helping hands.
Yeah, I agree. Me, without the support of my friends as well, my family, I don't know where you'll see me. Probably just there, just like a crazy lady, someone out there. As I grow older, um, I've learned that it's not about material things, it's about human connection. That's what we need. When someone asks me, how would you define success? Success is not about your status, it's not about your salary, it's not about your position. It's about how were you able to spread and share that light for
Mm-hmm.
others so others may also do the same, so others may benefit. For me, when you see others living the life they love, being the best version of themselves, that's success for me. Uh-huh.
I agree with you 100%. And I'm at a point now in my life, and I think age certainly does help with that. Age does not help with other things, but it certainly helps with some things, right?
I agree with you because as we age, what benefit do we get? Wisdom, right?
Right. Yeah. If I would have had some of this wisdom in my 20s, be a whole different ball game. It certainly would. Just the perspective of time helps. And to your point, I think of success or wealth or whatever, however you want to define it. And for me, I think very similar to what you think is like wealth to me is peace and stability. Having a quiet life with like my dogs and my husband and no interference, no pain, no strife, like that's wealth. That is truly, that makes me feel like I'm the richest person in the world, And I often think like, I don't need anything. I don't want anything because I have everything I could have ever wanted or imagined, things I never thought I would have growing up. A loving family and a loving home and stability. And so when people talk about like goals or what are the things you're trying to do or what do you want? And I'm like, I've reached my goals. I have everything I want. I wanted to be loved and I wanted to love somebody. I wanted a quiet, stable house. Check. Very simple needs, and they've been met.
Uh-huh. When you mention about goals, this is the next question. What are your goals for the next 12 months?
Sometimes goals for me, I have this joke when people ask me what are my New Year's resolutions.
Mhm.
I say I don't like to set resolutions because I don't want to disappoint myself. Um, so, I think a goal for sure this year is to promote my book, Fault Line, Still Standing, for sure. And sort of get that message out that you can have hope, you can not be defined by your past. You can have recovery in whatever way recovery is for you, and you can have a good life, however that is for you. If it's a 1 bedroom apartment or a 1 million room mansion, whatever that is for you. So I think one of the goals this year is obviously to, promote the book some more. One of the unintended goals of this has actually been connections with people. To your point earlier, where you said you had people reach out to you and, oh, this is my story too. I've had a couple of people reach out to me with very similar sentiments. I've had someone reach out to me and say, I know how to be a better father after reading your book. I've had people say, this one really actually got my heart. He said, the light inside of you to have endured all of that must be blinding. And it just really, it gave me pause because I felt seen. And you have those moments where you truly felt seen. And that comment made me feel seen. And so I think to continue that goal of having connections with people, being able to sort of show them there is hope, you can survive it, it's not going to define you. And within that goal, it's sort of a sub goal, is me getting more comfortable being uncomfortable. Me getting more comfortable saying, my mom and stepdad abused me. They tortured me. They kept food from me. They didn't let me go to school. They assaulted me in every possible way. And so sort of the sub goal in there is to get comfortable saying those things, and not being ashamed of it and not shrinking away from it, because that cannot hurt me anymore.
I agree with you. That's why when you share your story, what do we gain? Freedom. And that's where you gain your peace.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
You. Yes. So continue sharing your story, and I'm sure you'll be connecting with a lot of people. And through this platform, we will continue to promote your book. Again, the title of your book is Fault Line.
Fault Line Still Standing.
Fault Line Still Standing. And before we end, I would just like to ask, what advice would you give to others who might be facing similar challenges?
If you're coming to me for advice, you're in bad shape. That's a little joke. I think,
or just a simple advice you could share to our...
No. Yes. I'm sorry. Sometimes my dark humor comes through, Cynthia.
Okay.
I think one of the things I would say to people is to believe in yourself, believe that you can do it, believe that you are worth fighting for, you are worth speaking up for, you are worth loving, and that you deserve to be loved. And I know it's very simple for me to sort of spout this piousness on a podcast, because it's not that simple. You don't just wake up on Tuesday and say, gosh, I love me so much now. It takes work to do that. And it's very important work that you do in yourself, and not in an egotistical way, not in a way that it's all about you, but just in a way that you can be a better person. You can bring more light to yourself and to the people around you and to your community. And so I just encourage people to continue to stay working on the project that is you. You are worth it. You deserve it.
Wonderful. Simple advice, but that it's hard, no? It's hard to apply.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, gosh, yeah. Yes.
It's so
even the advice, like I hear myself echoing my words back, right? And sometimes I'm like, okay, smarty pants, but how do we do it? And so it is, and sometimes we don't know the path.
But the most important part for us to really go out and then grow and thrive is to really take that uncomfortable action step.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
take the risk.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I always tell the others, if you're always in your comfort zone, within your comfort zone, you won't be learning new things. There's no growth. You won't thrive. Opportunities are actually at the borderline of your comfort zone.
100%. And it's all about a life that you feel like you're thriving in,
Yes.
Life is meant to be lived. There's a great quote I love from this movie called Anti-Mame with Rosalind Russell. And she says, life is a banquet and most poor suckers are starving to death. I don't want to starve to death. I want all there is from life. And sometimes the things that we get from life are like the super good, sweet, good candy, right? And then sometimes we get things that are sour and don't taste good. but that is part of the buffet of life, and that's part of the experience, and that's how we learn and grow and become more human.
Exactly. And we always tell ourselves, we focus on the end result. It's not the end result. It's how you enjoy the journey towards your destination, the end result. What have you become?
Agreed, 100%.
Yes. So thank you so much, Tim, for this wonderful interview. I have learned so much, and I'm sure even the listeners have discovered so much value about you sharing your story. And I appreciate your openness
So
and
much.
valuable insights you have imparted. So, how will they be able to connect with you in your social media, email? Please
Yeah. Yes.
share your details.
Sure. So my Instagram account is tim.smith.writes, or you can reach me at my website, faultlinememoir.com.
Do you have Facebook account?
Um, I do, but it's just me. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Uh,
really have it's more personal, and
Personal. How
yeah, and
about
there's not a lot.
LinkedIn? LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm definitely on LinkedIn. How am I on LinkedIn? You could probably find me. You know how this is. You know how this is, Cynthia. You can find me, Tim Smith,
Okay,
in
okay.
Los Angeles, California. And you'll see that I'm an executive assistant to the global CFO of a private equity firm here in Beverly Hills.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. I would just like to say bye-bye to our listeners. Till next episode. Again, thank you so much, team, for your time.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.